Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for coming. My name is Miss Nelson, or Haley Nelson, and I am the orchestra teacher from 5 through 8 in this district. Tonight, you are going to get to see performances from the 5th grade orchestra, which you see in front of you right now, the 6th grade orchestra, which is Waiting Wings, and then our audition middle school group, the Stormy Orchestra. So, this is a very exciting concert for our 5th graders. Let's give them a round of applause right here. Their very first concert, some of them was last summer, where they were learning how to read their open string notes and pluck them for the first time and hold their instruments for the first time. In the early fall, many of you might have seen them play their first performance here, their first performance in the gym, at which time they had just finished learning how to put their fingers down on every note of the T scale. They're really good at that now. We warm up with the same thing every time. I'm going to show you what we do to warm up. The first thing we do is we play all of our open strings, trying to get the most beautiful sound we can get with the biggest bow. And I think you'll be pretty impressed because this group is enormous. Here we go. This is our warm-up. They had learned a little special thing at the end, and they really want to do it, but I said no. But maybe we will raise your hand if you can actually do it. If you can actually do it, we're going to attempt to do it, okay? Everybody else can just like open D with us or something, do something. But okay, so the ending might be a little chaotic, but enjoy the tune. Okay, everyone, let's give it up to our 6th grade orchestra. Okay, so we are performing 3 pieces for you tonight. The first one is called Sword Dance. This piece is extremely helpful for students at their level because it introduces a million new things that they have to know for the rest of the time that they play a student instrument. So such things as hooked bows, slurs, staccato, accents, double stops, all these fun words that they now know what that they mean, and it's a special language for all of us string players and musicians. So this is a great piece of classical writing. I hope you enjoy it. just slurred bows, where your bow moves, or your fingers change, but your bow doesn't. So you play a bunch of different notes in just one bow stroke by changing your fingers. And that can be really hard. It requires the left hand to be very disciplined and consistent to get the right timing. So this little Bible piece is full of slurs for them to practice. I hope you enjoy it. So a little bit about Stormy Strings. This is the auditioned group for the middle school. That means it comprises anyone who wants to get up early twice a week and play even more orchestra than they already do. This includes sixth graders, seventh graders, and eighth graders in this group. All of these people started as fifth graders, just like our fifth grade group. And now they're here, some of them 3 years later, some of them 1 year later, some of them 2. So, this is a very fun group. We have a lot of fun. We're going to play 4 tunes for you, and we're going to start off with our signature tune, Storm by Sue Vocals. who also did Carnival of the Animals and the Orchid Symphony that the CLSO just performed recently. So this is a really famous piece. And I'm not going to say much more about it. It's enjoy. go to Hawaii now. We're going to Hawaii now. We actually are. So.